Robert, it looks like it's Robert, it's saying that you're muted. Julie, you can't unmute him, can you?
Okay.
There he is. Yeah. By his, yeah.
Can't hear you, Robert.
And
Maybe try,
just so you know, John, the webinar is already started because I had to start it in order to put people in as panelists.
Okay, no worries.
So they're already here.
Okay.
And Robert, maybe it'd be worth trying quitting and reconnecting. We're just going to have introductions at the beginning. Cannot hear.
All right, so everybody's all the members of the public that are with us can hear me now, Julie?
Yes.
All right, let's go ahead and start at 6:02. Hello, everyone. My name is John Morin. I'm the Director of Operations with San Mateo County Harbor District. On behalf of the San Mateo County Harbor District, I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight. The purpose of this workshop is for the district to gather input from the public on the Pillar Point Harbor Retail Center Replacement Project. The current retail restaurant building has reached the end of its lifespan. The systems and the structure itself are failing, and due to changes in accessibility requirements, the aged facility is just challenged. It is time for us to begin the process of assessing opportunities in reconstruction and possible relocation of the building. As some of you may be aware, we're already having to build new restrooms in the back of the building behind the catch, since there's simply not room inside for ADA restrooms. If we end up building a new facility in a different location, these restrooms will simply remain standalone when the rest of the building is demoed and replaced with parking. Parking is a challenge, so we've been leaning toward a 2-story building, either in the same location or a different location, roughly the same size footprint, so it's not taking up more parking spaces, but doubled indoor space because it's 2-story. The district went through a request for proposal process and subsequently hired a professional design engineering firm, Goring and Straja, to assist us with this project. Tonight, the Goring and Straja team will discuss ideas we've come up with thus far and get any ideas, concerns you may have, as end user input is most valuable. You will have an opportunity to ask questions. We'll keep the meeting very informal. Please hit the raise hand icon and you'll be called upon. Please keep yourself muted when not speaking, so everybody can have an opportunity to speak and we're not all speaking over each other. All right, I'm ready to now turn the meeting over to the Goring Straja team, who will introduce themselves and begin by telling you a little bit about themselves. Doug, are you going to start, or Jim?
No, I'm going to take it over, John. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Douglas Thornley. I'm principal with Goring and Straja Architects. I'm here together with Jim Goring, who's principal and also founder of Goring Straja Architects, and Teresa Cronati, who is our project manager. Also, as part of our design team is April Phillips of April Phillips Design Works. She's a landscape architect, is also principal and founder of her firm. And Robert Stevens, who is principal and also a local Half Moon Bay resident. He is with CSW ST2 civil engineering firm. So I think from that, I'm going to hand it over to Jim.
Thanks, Doug. And I'm glad all of you are here. Were able to join us. I'm going to do a little presentation of the existing conditions and what we've been working on together with our consultants and with the Harbor District, as soon as I can figure out how. Here we go. Okay. So thanks for being here. We're going to do a relatively straightforward review of the existing site conditions and site constraints, environmental issues, entitlement roadmap, some relevant issues, relevant reference projects, and then talk about various site locations. Our goal today is to try and get input from you guys on what's important and things we may have omitted thinking about that the community is concerned with. And we are very early in the design process, but we're working on now is sort of the most fundamental thing, which is where to place the building. And exactly once we have some consensus or seem to have some energy going towards a most favored site, then we'll be developing the design. So of course, we'd also like to get a sense of if people have ideas or suggestions about what is appropriate for seaside development in terms of architecture in Half Moon Bay. So this is the site on a sunny day. I think it's one piece of information we're trying to find is how many days of a year are actually sunny. We'll give that to our marketing consultant. These are the existing conditions, and we have a few pictures of these. April, if you're there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, here's the sidewalk area where everybody gathers. It's right on the parking lot. So obviously there's an opportunity because it's large, but the drawback is that it's on the parking lot, so you don't feel safe. So, and there's zero landscape. So
yeah, it's generous and not terribly inviting.
yes.
Oops, let me come back here, go to the next slide. And you can see that from the ocean, this is sort of the opposite view from where the view is, the building is sort of hidden, which suggests that also from the building, the waterfront is not immediately obvious right in front of you. The building is in a sea of parking. As John noted, the building's infrastructure is aging. It doesn't necessarily present its best face to the first place where people see it. This is, I know, a well-loved institution. So not disparaging the seafood market, but it could use some assistance. And then of course the seawall and the waterfront itself. One of the things that we'll need to be wrestling with, of course, is the great draw to this area is the waterfront and the sea view. And then the downside of being close to the waterfront and the sea view is, as we all know, the sea is rising, there's storms. And we don't want to block views or visual access to the waterfront any more than we have to. I have a feeling everyone who's attending today is probably very familiar with circulation around there. Obviously, Highway 1 is the main access to the site. The pink lines are vehicular travel, and the green lines are the kind of waterfront promenade, as well as pedestrian access out to Johnson Pier and the public pier as well. So we're keenly aware of as we relocate these buildings, we want to preserve that pedestrian promenade and actually, if possible, help the building relate to it a little bit better. This diagram does kind of show the existing building as sort of this island to itself, stepped back quite a bit on the site. Whoopsie. I've grown up in California my whole life. And of course, like most people, I always think, oh, the ocean is over there in the west. Very interesting on this site is it's not. The ocean is down there in the south, which is actually great for the southern exposure is much easier to control for sunlight while still maintaining an open view. So that's advantageous to us. The other thing we have to keep in mind as we go through this is the prevailing winds from the west southwest. Sometimes it gets chilly down there. We want to invite people to be comfortable outdoors. We may need to block the wind or control the wind in a way that makes sense. So this site has a few risks, and every time we turn around, there seems there's more. This is in a FEMA identified tsunami inundation zone. And at the scale of our drawings, you see the whole drawing just turned yellow. There's the little window on the upper left shows sort of broader picture of the projected inundation zone that goes up into the Princeton area, the airport as well, and pretty much covers the whole site. This doesn't necessarily suggest that we have to abandon the site, but one thing that's important as we develop schemes and work with the county and the state is to make sure that we don't make worse the evacuation procedure and possibilities from the site when there is a tsunami. And one thing that will probably be discussed as we move forward with planning and state issues is the quality of the intersection with the Highway 1. We've already been put on notice by the county that they would like to discuss that. you're a little bit far away from the San Andreas fault, but you have your own fault, the San Gregorio fault. So we have been working with a geotechnical engineer to identify the different costs. There are parts of the site that are up high where the soil is relatively dry and spread footings might be okay. And there are parts of the site down by the seawall that are probably mud dredged up and placed behind the seawall and compacted. So obviously building foundations there will be a little bit more problematic, but we are aware of that.
Jim,
Yes.
may I ask really quickly, if an attendee raises their hand, do you want to take questions as their hands are raised, or do you want to wait to the end of the presentation?
Thank you. I think with 15 people, I think it's going to be best if we can collect the questions and then try and address them all at the end. I should have a clock in front of me. We're doing very well on time. How many questions have appeared?
We only have one attendee's hand raised.
Well, let's
and
take it, and if it starts to impact timing, then we'll defer them all to the end. But if there's only one question, that's fine.
Yeah, and she might be just asking how many members of the public are attending the meeting. So the answer to that is 15.
So far. Okay, that's an easy question. So I'm gonna carry on here. So we've been trying to assess the hazards, and of course the other one is sea level rise, and actually even without sea level rise, this is the existing seawater level situation. The light sort of the blue-green dash line that's down low here. Oh, and I'll try and annotate on this a little bit.
Okay, and sorry, her hand's raised again. Should I let her in?
Sure.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to point out that the chat is not enabled, and participants in the meeting, meaning members of the public whose pictures are not shown in the screen, are not listed. So there seems to be a lack of transparency for public access to the meeting. And I would appreciate it if you guys could enable the chat so that we can chat and then and ask questions, and also allow the participants to see who's in the room. Thank you.
Do we have the technology?
Mohit, would you know
Yes.
how to? Okay,
So
and
I'm in the chat, and I'm able to see attendees can chat with the option is selected everyone, and panelists can chat with. I pushed everyone, so it should be working. Yeah, I can see a chat from Captain's meeting.
So the question is, how come we can't see who's in the room? Can you adjust Zoom so that we can see who's in the room? Thank you.
That we'll have to figure it out right now as the meeting goes. I will try my best.
I think if you do go to I don't know if you have a participants button, but at least you can see the names of people if you're able to get that far. Maybe not see their faces. So we are sort of early, and we're going pretty well here. I'm happy to take some questions as we move along. If it starts really getting backed up, I'm going to ask people to hold their questions till the Q&A period, and then we'll open it all up. So this is actually, Robert, did you get your microphone to work? No. Oh, no. Well, okay. Robert, if I misrepresent the sea level rise discussion, jump up and down. Okay. So this is the existing condition at the site. And you can probably see the little blue line towards the surf, towards the ocean side is the existing mean high tide. And that's this point here. And the current FEMA forecasted storm surge.
Testing.
Oh, it's working.
I knew it. I knew it. So let me bail you out, Jim. Let me give you a little little brief review here. So yes, hello everyone. Thank you for having me here today. Really excited to talk about this. Very familiar with this. Come here every weekend, walk up the path. Really excited to see the district looking to make some improvements here and create some new spaces. But so we're talking a little bit about sea level rise, and Jim and his team has put a really great graphic together here that shows us kind of mean high water or a reasonable high tide that we would see out there. And you can see that that follows the coastline nicely. And then you can also see an extreme high water line. That's that 8.2 foot zone, which shows the dotted line going through the parking lot. That's one of those extreme high tides that, well, I think the last time that happened was in the early 80s, but it's something that could happen here. So that's sort of framing sort of what we would see kind of today out there potentially. Next slide, please.
Oops.
So I know there's been a lot of discussion about sea level rise. There's been a lot of documents developed. Both the Harbor District and the state of California, as well as San Mateo County, have created a lot of great research related to that. Kind of right now, we look at the Ocean Protection Council study. It's the 2018 edition, which really kind of frames this where we are with that. So next slide, please. So, you know, as we're sort of framing this and we're kind of thinking about where we are on this, we're looking at, if you've ever looked at the OPC report, there's a lot of different probabilities associated with it and a future year that we're looking towards. So, you know, if we look towards the end of the century and we look at the potential 5% probability of sea level rise impact, it gets us to about 2.3 feet. If we add that to our extreme tide, we're looking at an elevation of about 10.5 feet. And you can see on our drawing here that consumes a lot of the parking lot, goes up to the building face, wraps around to the kayak rental area. And then you can also see kind of, if we were just looking at, you know, on an average year, what sea level rise would do to us. You can see the line that's closer to the water that occupies the existing sort of promenade there. It's a lot less of an impact. So that's where we're looking at right our planning around this form of sea level rise.
We have
Thank you, Robert.
2 hands raised.
Yeah, I think this is an important one to take at least a couple questions. And again, we're doing okay with time. So please let folks have a question. Or am I to do that? So let's okay, Dan
Yes,
Haggard.
hello, Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. I can see that you know, there's going to be a lot of your presentation. For me, one of the biggest questions I have is, you know, what exactly is the problem with the existing building? What will it take to fix it? And why are we not talking about, you know, kind of, you know, that area of being able to repair and take the necessary steps to, you know, make the retail center that's existing function well?
So I can address that. We're looking at various sites. One of the sites is the existing site. And when we first visited the building, we thought it was such a no-brainer in terms of sustainability to rehab, repair, possibly rebuild on site, but keep the foundations and the masonry shear walls. And that is one of the, you know, potentials we'll be talking about. The building is kind of tired, and it may not be particularly cost savings depending on how much we dig into it, but it's not off the table, I don't think.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And okay, I'll carry on a little bit, I think. Or are there any other hands raised? Not now. Okay. And then as you guys are probably, well, may or may not be.
There is one other hand raised.
Is there? Okay. let's go back to that. Let's see here. Okay, Sabrina.
Yeah, thanks.
Brennan.
Appreciate the time. So, couple things that I do not understand about this meeting. We've been hearing nothing but alarm over the district's financial situation, to the point where they're reducing staff for harbor patrol and security purposes, so on and so forth. As you probably are aware, Pillar Point Harbor is not within easy access of the US Coast Guard, because the Coast Guard comes from San Francisco Bay, and so they cannot respond timely to an emergency that's happening near Pillar Point Harbor. And of course, since it's a harbor for commercial fishing vessels as well as for recreational vessels, the emergencies do happen. And so given the funding constraints, which apparently are quite significant, it's hard to understand why we would be having this discussion this evening, in light of the fact that there are so many more extremely pressing issues, such as the dilapidated docks, which are disintegrating. The styrofoam is sloughing off into the water. I've been sent photos by people who are slip holders at Pillar Point Harbor and own boats that they dock at Pillar Point Harbor. The styrofoam is breaking down. It's creating a water quality concern. There are other issues with relation to the stability of the pier and the accessibility on the pier and the safety on the pier for the public. It's not serving the purpose that it was intended for the commercial fishing industry, and it's also not serving a safe purpose for the public. So while it would be nice, I agree, to provide a better public serving facility where we've sort of, I'll just say as a community, are not getting what we probably should out of the concessionaires building. And given sea level rise, I would assume that thing needs to get completely relocated. But aside from that, we've got these way more important things that we should be talking about. And so I'm just a bit frustrated that things have been sidelined that are, of public importance and safety and water quality, so environmental hazards, that those things have not risen to the level of having a discussion about spending a lot of money on a really big project. So I think you get the gist of it. That's kind of where I'm coming from. And I just think we need, as a community, to impart, some reasonable priorities on the harbor district. And I apparently that has not happened, because here we are having a discussion about something that's simply not very significant in the scheme of things. It's not that, if everything was perfect, sure, why not? But it's simply not. So, what's going on here with that? Thank you.
John, I'm going to turn that one over to you.
Yeah, the bottom line is that our Board of Harbor Commissioners and General Manager have directed staff to begin the process, which we are doing now, with the design engineering firm Goring Straja, who's given the presentation today. They've been hired to pursue, at the direction of our Board of Harbor Commissioners and General Manager, the potential for us to either build at the same site or at a different site, a new or improved retail center. And I would just have to, say that I believe the thoughts are we can chew gum and walk at the same time. We are still trying our best. We've got a Moffett Nickel, another design engineering firm that is working diligently on finalizing the permits to dredge the inner harbor and to replace the docks and expand the pier, Johnson Pier terminus that does service the commercial fishing fleet. So it's this is not. I don't think we can argue that this is stopping us from pursuing the other projects as well. That no matter what, tonight we're interested in learning about this project, where we're at, and getting input from the public on this project. I do understand that some members of the community believe that, you know, that we should maybe not be pursuing this project at all. But the fact is, we've all been directed to pursue it, and that's what we're doing tonight. So I hope that answers the question.
And we have some sensitivity to the issue also. We are working with another consultant who we're going to recommend the district looks at to add some financial feasibility issues to this. It may be pie in the sky, but the hope is that this would enable, you know, the district to better address other issues that are going to take up money. This is ideally a profit center. Okay, I'm going to carry on. Robert, is there anything else you want to say about the sea level rise issue here, or should we keep going? We're good. Okay. So the entitlements involve everybody. I'm going to let Teresa talk about this a little bit, but you know, depending on exactly where in the site the building is going to be, it's either, well, go ahead, Teresa.
Well, because of the site proximity to the water, the project will need to obtain a coastal development permit, in addition to the planning and building permit from San Mateo County. So the coastal development permit, or CDP for short, is regulated by the California Coastal Commission, which is a state agency, and it has the overlapping jurisdiction with the counties and cities along the California coast. So in some area, CCC, or the Coastal Commission, has an agreement with the local government that allows local government to perform the coastal development review and issue CDP on behalf of CCC. And this is what is known as the local coastal program. But when it comes to coastal development permit for Pillar Point Harbor site, the northern portion of the site is covered under the LCP, which is the blue area, while the southern portion remains under CCC jurisdiction, which is the pink area. So thus, for any development that falls in the blue area, the San Mateo County would review and issue CDP on behalf of CCC. And then if it falls in the pink area, Coastal Commission will review and issue CDP directly. If the project is located in the blue area, decision made by the county in regards to the CDP can be appealed and brought up to the Coastal Commission by the applicants or anyone who participated in the local decision-making process. But there are limitations on the grounds for appeal, but generally an approved project can be appealed if it doesn't conform to the LCP or Coastal Act public access port provision. Anyway, so in any case, the county planning approval must be obtained prior to issuance of the coastal development permit. So that county planning approval process involves design review and environmental review process. So yes, it is not, it's going to be a long road. Coastal will only issue the CDP once the county has issued their approval. So therefore, we will want to engage those agencies early in the design process to make sure that whatever we submit for official review will meet all their requirements.
Wow, thank you, Teresa.
So this is just a rough timeline. We are essentially doing the first 4 addressing the SLR and the coastal development permit. And once we finalize our design, we will go ahead and submit that for the county review. if the project is in the blue area, then the county will also review the coastal development permit. So then after the county approve and issue the planning approval,
Teresa, can I just step in for a second since there's a bunch of folks here? During the county approval process, we will need to have another public hearing when we have a design to present. Right now, we're kind of before that point. So there will be at least one more workshop where we'll have a much more detailed design to present.
Correct. Right. The design review, the county design review will be part of that planning process. So then if it falls under the Coastal Commission jurisdiction, which is the pink area, they're saying that their review process will take 180 to 270 days, might be longer, depending on how many times we have to resubmit. But yeah, it's so a year.
Yeah, another reason that building on the same site might be advantageous calendar-wise. Thanks, Teresa. When we were speaking with some folks we were able to interview regarding the project, we got some great heads up about local and not so local relevant projects to look at. And in fact, if folks here have other projects to mention to us that would make great models, please add them in the chat or mention them during the Q&A period, because we're trying to collect as many reference projects as possible, simply to have a richer drawer of tricks to pull from. This is in Alameda Point. Doug and April and I went and looked at this the other way. This is April Phillips' design project at well, go ahead, April. Well, I'm not sure what it's
sure.
not the Radiant Runway, it's something else.
So this is a park that just opened a few months ago this year, Alameda Point Waterfront Park. It's at the former Naval Air Station. And it's a 3.5 acre site for the first phase. We fall into the BCDC for the first 100 feet. So we obviously, and the 200-foot width of the park, it falls into the Coastal Conservancy district. So we dealt with sea level rise on an island perspective, because this park is part of the island edge. And one of the things we looked at was similar to what Robert talked about, with you look towards the end of the century, so 2080 being sort of the guiding of zone of what you would design for. And in this case, is the 24 inches here. And the approach was 4 different options, but we ended up with one of inundation, tidal inundation, to be handled by our terraces, so that as we have stormwater and storms through the years, we would have parts of our project that would be able to handle that. And then when it got to a certain level that triggered accessibility issues, then the next stage of the development would be raised for building either a seawall or a levee. And the city ended up deciding, because this is a more civic park, that we would do a wall. So we ended up working back and forth with how much of the edge could be retreat. So this was a retreat of 35 feet edge, so that we could build up the rest of the terraces at the sea level rise. So the 3/4 of the project was built to the future sea level rise right away, with the inundation of the terraces being dealt with towards the end of the century, where we'd raise a few of the terraces and build the seawall. So it was an interesting thing to look at all the different options you have and tools in the toolbox to deal with sea level rise, because the goal is, if you build things, you do not want to retreat that much, or you're retreating only because of what's necessary. In this case, it was necessary to retreat the 35 feet because this edge that was built by the Navy was going to fail eventually. So we're building the sea level, the sea wall at that point where we can save that edge. So that was just one idea of how to deal with sea level rise. And I think we'll go to the next slide. And this is a project in San Diego where, while the edge along the restaurant, there's a 2-story building, you have a great deck. And then at the edge, down on the lower level, they built a couple of terraces that were more like seat walls. So you could sit. And these over time, again, would be where the tides may come in with, if we have rising tides and, you know, big storms in the future. And so that what they've done is do it in such a way we can, for now, for the next 100 years, you can access that water there. And then, you know, but know that in this case, it was only about 10 feet that they've designed these seat benches going down towards the lower edge of their seawall. So different ways to deal with it, because you want to plan ahead, but you want to don't overbuild until, you know, things are triggered where then you have to deal with the sea level rise more specifically. So you want to design this one. They did raise the whole finished floor of this building at the future level, so that, you know, you don't have, you're saving the building, you're building a place that is not going to retreat. And in this case, it's only that edge where now we'll take advantage of, because we want to get down to the water. But in the future, the water's going to be right at lapping at that promenade level. Next slide. And I think I'm going to send this one back to you, but this is a much loved project down in Santa Cruz. And we didn't know much about the sea level rise, but we wanted to show this, right, Jim? I think we all thought it was a great example.
You know, actually, I think it was Sabrina that recommended this project, if I'm identifying it right. But you know, where our existing building is now, it has a hill behind it and a few 100 feet of parking in front of it, and yet it's a seaside development. And obviously, these are smack on the water, which is sort of the draw for the public to come to a place like this. So it's just a reminder that if we're developing something to serve the public at a seaside facility, yes, we have to deal with the sea level rise, but the whole point of being at a sea level facility is to enjoy the ocean, enjoy the sights and smells and sounds, see people working out there and really engage directly with it. So this is just sort of a reminder of that. This is a similar facility down in Santa Barbara, I think. And you know, very popular, very busy. Obviously, this is far more touristy than Johnson Pier. I don't think we're going to get quite this far, but there are some lessons here in terms of, you know, making places that are draw, that are interesting, and that are dynamic and full of life. I don't know the story of how high their piers are and how, you know, hopefully they don't have to tear these things out and raise them up 6 feet. But it was it's a nice pattern for a lively space. And then we also realized, you know, the ultimate way to deal with sea level rise is to build on the sea. Has BCDC in the Bay Area would have a complete heart attack, but fortunately, I don't think you're in their jurisdiction. So we toyed with this idea a little bit. And in fact, I think in Amsterdam, this large barge project is a floating engineering office. It's just very intriguing to look at. It's also, you know, has every sustainable cliche you can imagine. Doesn't use any landscape. It has a landscape roof and a photovoltaic roof. It's probably net zero. I don't really know, but it was an intriguing idea to think of, and it did plant an idea for us in the sort of constellation of ideas for us to look at. So I'm just checking the clock here. We're fine on time. I don't want to abuse anybody's time here. So we basically came up with a few different places where this building could be, starting with the existing location, which is here. It says site option, potentially 2 floors in the existing location. At one point, we had shown a site up at the upper parking, but the more people we talked to from the community, there seemed to be a general feeling, gee, you know, the closer we can get to the coast side and the water side, that would be nice. Going further away from it might be safer, but going extremely far away from it, there would just be no point. So we were looking at 6 options here, and I'll go through these all in a little bit more detail, but here you can kind of see them all. This uphill site obviously is going to be dry as a bone in the worst sea level rise and storm surge condition. The existing site is actually, with the sea level rise projection figures we're using, okay. It's right on the border. There are other sites that might require significant grading, and sooner or later, probably the whole site will require significant grading. So one we looked at here would be right on the head wall, adjacent to the harbor master's office. Then you can see another one we looked at, a floating option, which everyone fell in love with until someone noted that, you know, that might be great if you're going to a restaurant, but if all you want is a few fish hooks and a, you know, jar of weights, that's kind of a pain to park your car all the way out here and walk down to get that. So anyway, I'll walk through and then a couple over in this area, one we call the Rocky Beach and one the Weedy Beach, and they all have pros and cons. And I confess, I was convinced that putting on the existing site was the way to go. And now I'm really not sure I have a preference. So this is our kind of, if we rebuild something on the existing site, you can see the section up above. It is very intriguing because the top level, the parking that's directly above this is almost at a height that could provide access to a second floor. Second floor would have a much better view. May not be a complete second floor. The existing building is about a little over 7,000 square feet. Perhaps the second floor is a full 7,000, or perhaps it's just space for a nice bar and a nice restaurant and, you know, a different tenant mix. So that's kind of intriguing. Looking at the advantages here, there isn't a lot of regrading necessary on the balance of the site just by putting the building here. Doesn't reduce available parking. Depending on how we're doing things, the construction time might be lower and the construction cost might be lower because, again, not a lot of regrading, hopefully being able to reuse existing footings and so on. Least construction waste. And again, at the second floor, we'd have a great view. The drawbacks are the existing tenants would have to move when the project is done. And that's a hard burden on a tenant to keep their business alive for the 12 to 16 plus months that construction would take. And it's far away from the water and far away from the views. So, you know, there's obvious downsides. I'm going to pause here since I'm going to take a Sabrina question, looking at the clock here again. So we have till 8. So how do I do that? There we go. Oops, try again. Hang on.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just for clarification purposes, when you showed that great map, if we could go back to it, I mean, what you're showing now is good, but if we could also go back to the map that showed which areas fall under direct coastal commission jurisdiction and which areas fall under county jurisdiction, which means then if the county approves something, it can be appealed to the coastal commission. So it's less direct route to the coastal commission. I'm explaining this to the public so they have a better understanding, which actually you guys should be doing, just FYI.
Patricia did do that for us. So basically, the blue and pink line goes about like this. So every site below that.
No. You showed the map with the pink and the blue. Where can we go back to the map with the pink and the blue?
Why don't you proceed with your question? I'll see if I can find it.
Okay, great. That's my question for now. And I have a question about another slide as well.
Whoops, hang on. I have to kill this. Oh, I'm not going to go that far back now. We'll circle back to that. But if your question was.
No, it's really important that we go back to that slide, and that's why you have a map. So if you could please go back to the map slide. And if you're not able to do that, there's a problem with the presentation. The other slide that I'd like to look at would be the slide that shows the image from Santa Cruz.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to that one if I can find it. There you go.
Okay, so first of all, you attributed that image to me. That was a misattribution. I did not ever indicate this project with this riprap in front was something that should be done. So I just want to clarify that should not be attributed to me. What I was talking about is an area that has a whole lot of sand in front of it and does not.
Yeah. So
okay.
Isn't that the view from the right of this? See the white building and the trees in front?
Yeah, but you're not showing the right view at all.
Okay, but
so
it
you're
is the right facility.
You're showing where that's a completely separate area. And so that's where the harbor is located, but it's not showing where the ocean is intersecting with the building. But that's really all I had to say on that. Can we go back to the map, please?
No, I'll address that when we have the question and answer period. I'd like to sort of go through this linearly. And
is there a reason, excuse me, is there a reason that you're afraid to show us the map with the pink and the blue that shows the two different areas where the
So
county
I-
has
I'm-
jurisdiction and where the coastal commission has jurisdiction, because it is very important to understand that. And what you have said during this presentation does not match up with that map. And so I'm trying to get clarity because there's an inconsistency from what you're saying and what the map
That's the
shows.
map, right?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. So is that the concessionaires building there in pink?
Yes,
Okay, so according to this map, it says pink, coastal commission, direct permit jurisdiction. There's no question that is within the coastal commission's jurisdiction. It is not on the cusp. It is clearly within the jurisdiction. So I just want to make that clear. So if you decide to build in that location again, and I know that's a big question, we don't know what's going to happen, that will have to go directly to the coastal commission. So I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
thank you. But this side up here, the uphill option, we're clear. Anyway, I'm going to carry on going through these. So anyway, so this site is probably the quickest and simplest to develop. It has to go through the permitting, but it's also far away from the coast and really gives you few of the advantages of actually being on this site. This site up here, up the hill, this one doesn't go through the coastal commission unless it's appealed to the coastal commission, which is very likely. So the advantages of it, it's higher on the site. It's well above the highest projected sea level rise that we're looking at. Minor and local regrading, because it's up high, we wouldn't have to regrade a great deal of parking area to deal with this. There's some better visibility simply because we're up higher. This we have as an advantage here, it increases visibility from the highway. That might equally be determined as a disadvantage because it also therefore blocks the view from the highway more. Doesn't displace current tenants during construction. So that's an advantage in most of the schemes that don't rebuild on the existing site. And depending on how it's designed, there might be plenty of deck space for outdoor dining and the like. The drawbacks for many of the schemes that don't use the existing site is probably a longer construction time, higher cost, although this one compared to some others, because it doesn't involve a huge amount of grading, might not be quite as high. There will be some disturbance of the existing tenants because we're going to be very close to them, but that can be managed with design and construction. It's even further away from the waterfront than the existing building. And depending on if the existing building footprint were to be reclaimed as parking, then there's even more parking between the tenants and the ocean. And of course, another drawback is when we destroy that existing building, we're putting a lot of material into the waste stream. Whoops, excuse me. There's an opportunity here that came up in some earlier discussions internally, what we're going to call the Rocky Beach option. And it's an intriguing one that it would be raising the existing head wall on one edge where there's already a sort of a hardened seaside. It's very close to the waterfront. Depending on where it's located, we'll take that back. Yeah, it would not displace the existing tenants during construction because it's far away from the existing building. Plenty of deck space, and ideally it would be designed in such a way that the existing public promenade would take advantage of that and walk around it and use that public outdoor space. Some drawbacks, it will require some regrading, although again, because the main drive comes down here, there's an opportunity to limit the regrading just to the actual building footprint itself. Not much of it has to telegraph to the rest of the site, and that's where costs really start to go up. There'll be a longer construction time than working on the existing building. And of course, probably some higher costs. It takes up existing parking spaces, but again, it frees up the existing footprint to deal with that. So it's an intriguing location for a lot of reasons there. This is one we talked about, well, I just noted briefly earlier. The existing head wall is already a hardened surface. If it were to be raised, and it may have to be raised eventually anyway, it would be a potential site for another development. It's down low, it's on the water. Those are sort of obvious. Doesn't displace the existing tenants again. Depending on the design, there could be plenty of deck for the outdoor dining. It could possibly, have steps as April was talking about earlier on some of the other schemes. Down to the water, you get your feet wet or go fishing. And likely, if this were to be pursued, I'm stepping over my jurisdiction here, John, but at some point the harbor master's office is going to have to deal with sea level rise also. So it could be a synergy of projects if this one were to go. It does require a lot of regrading of the parking lot because currently the whole parking lot sheet drains towards the ocean, I believe. And if I'm wrong about that, Robert, let me know. So we would need to regrade that. And the upside of that is we would trap a lot of that water and be able to percolate it and clean it up before it hits the ocean, which should be what's happening anyway. And again, compared to the existing buildings, it's going to take a long time to do this, and be quite disruptive, and it'll be a little bit higher cost. And then we thought, you know, the floating building option is quite intriguing. It's immediate access to the water. It would have a sort of certain draw in that way. It doesn't displace any tenants during construction. Depending on how it's developed, it could be interesting deck space. It's resilient to sea level rise. It might be a little sensitive place to hang out during very, very stormy days. But things like this are done. It has some drawbacks, longer construction time, probably higher costs. Be a lot of specialty engineering involved. Turns out there are some existing docks here that this would displace, so that's not great. And it might not be ideal for retail, as I mentioned earlier. It might be a great draw for restaurants, but coming down here, if you just want to get a hot dog or a fish hook, might be an off-putting to some people. At one point, we thought this site would be a viable option. It has some great location issues. It's got access to the beach. It doesn't displace current tenants. Plenty of deck space. It may require significant regrading, and it may also require some hardening of the shore there, which is probably not a good thing to look at. We're not sure about that. We need to study it some more. Again, like the others, will be a little bit longer construction time than using the existing site, and some higher costs. Anyway, so those are kind of the broad range of places where we could place the facility. We're going to ask folks after the Q&A to weigh in. There is a poll on a website that allows, for ranking these, and we've taken a pass through it. Basically starting with the existing building and score everything however you think they should be scored. And then we're looking at site disruption. That is, how much of the site you have to grade. Would a seawall be required? Tenant disruption is pretty obvious. You have to move the existing tenants to do the project. Is there net parking reduction on site? How does it address pedestrian access? What are the sea level rise risks? Is the construction cost, compared to the first project, higher or lower? How does it address waterfront engagement? And how does it address outdoor access? So they all have sort of different characteristics that way. So we're trying to basically do two things. One, hopefully during the question and answer period, we can get some feedback on people's initial thoughts about these. And then we'd love to get some metric. The little poll thing's very quick. We can go very fast. I don't know if, we have an email address, so we can take email input also. The poll itself, I think, is you click buttons. I'm not sure, Teresa, if there's space in it to add comments.
I can add that right now.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful, I think. I'm gonna now open it up to even more questions and answers, and I would be happy to address them, or actually all of us would be.
We don't have any hand raised at the moment.
Okay.
There we go.
There's one. How do I find that? I'm trying to click on Captain Smith. There, you should be able to talk.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this discussion. One of the things that I wanted to discuss about this is for vast majority of the tenants that are in the harbor, both based in the building and us that are based off the piers. Parking is going to be one of the most important issues to deal with. And in looking at your option, I believe it was 2, that would take the parking lot behind the existing building and use that for the new structure. My question was, would the existing building be demoed and that used to increase the parking to compensate for the loss of parking? It's very important for our clients to be able to get into the harbor. Not everybody can use public transportation because our businesses start basically before public transportation. We all know that there's not very much there to begin with. I'm sorry. And then on option 2, the Rocky Beach, how would that affect the existing bathrooms? And would they be left on site? And would that constitute expansion of the wall there further down, along with I guess that would be building the site up to take that expansion? Thank you.
Sure. If I and jump in if I understand your question incorrectly. As far as parking goes, except for which one? The goal is that all of the schemes would wind up being neutral with parking, because we either build in the existing site, or when we build somewhere else, we'd probably replace the existing site with more parking. That's not true. A couple of this weedy beach site, I have a feeling, is going to die a painful death for other reasons, but it would wind up being probably a net parking plus, because it's located in an area that's currently landscape, which is the reason it's probably going to die a well-deserved death. And also building on the water, of course, preserves, gives you the opportunity to recycle the existing site as parking. Yes, we are aware of the existing bathroom. Actually, you can see the existing restroom buildings poking its head out there. So it would be, the new building would incorporate the public restroom facility in its ground floor someplace. It would need to. And we're just sort of coming up to, learning that has a head wall on the south side of it. I'm not sure how far it turns around and wraps around the corner, or if it's just a bit of hardened shore there. I was looking at a photograph a moment ago and I don't exactly remember it. But the goal of that site would be not to increase the amount of vertical hardened concrete wall. We'd have to raise the head wall for sure, vertically. And the kind of, I'm not sure if I can explain this, I'll try to. So sort of what the advantage of that particular site being close to the water is, and because it's sort of separated from the rest of the parking, the area that would need to be regraded is somewhat smaller there. It's about, in that blue area. And then there would have to be steps and accessible, an accessible path down there as well. But that whole area to the left could remain ungraded and untouched by the project. Yeah, I hope I addressed your question.
Am I still alive?
You are.
Okay. In the area, the one we were just talking about with breakwater, that is where tenants have permitted parking. So you would be eliminating the parking for tenants by going into that space. Where would you then compensate tenant parking for that? And the other question on that, well, it's get you to address the other question. The other part was the floating option. I really don't see as being viable. You're going to be reducing berth space, which are paying tenants out of the harbor. So I see that as a reduction, and also that a floating dock is going to be much more expensive to maintain, I believe, in the long run. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we all came to that same conclusion about the floating dock. It was so intriguing, we had to put it there. The idea with the parking is anywhere on all the schemes where we aren't building in the same building, that real estate would be turned over to make up for the parking we're losing in wherever the new building site is. So, and I think that even, whether it's tenant parking or public parking, the idea is it's sort of a net balance in the parking that's impacted. Excuse me, a net zero balance in the parking that's impacted. I'm going to move on to Carlisle and Young, if that's okay. I have to press some buttons apparently here. So, oh, there we go.
I got it, man.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Thanks. I unfortunately did not get to see the presentation. So I was driving home from Sunnyvale. So, and I tuned in late as well. So is this going to be on YouTube like your Harbor District meetings are? This presentation, we watch it later. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm looking at John to say, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
To answer your question, this meeting recording and the link to the questionnaire will be on our website, smharbor.com.
So that's gonna, we can
Access it
watch
there.
it later and then answer the questions for our choices later.
Yes,
basically.
yes, and
Okay,
there's a place, Teresa is putting a place for additional comments that you may
Good.
think of as well.
okay, well, I do have a few questions because since I tuned in late, I apologize if you already covered it. But where is the money coming from this, and how much is the budget for any of these options? And you arrange in your budget?
I'm going to turn to John for that one as well.
Yeah, we don't at present, everything's so, you got so many unknowns. The board has not restricted us to a specific budget at present. As we develop ideas here, and as Goring Straja ultimately comes up with a preferred option, then we can ask them to put together an engineer's estimate, which we would then be bringing to the public and to the board for consideration.
Okay, so right now you don't have any idea. It's pie in the sky versus the do nothing option of not spending any money at all, basically, right? Since there's nothing brought to the board at this point, it could be a wide range of costs.
Yeah,
And the second question.
It's going to depend
ahead.
greatly on, what option we end up choosing, how many
Exactly.
square feet we end up deciding to build upon. So
And
there's
where, rating and all of that.
exactly, yeah.
So, okay, I heard that part, but I just didn't know if you had already covered the financials in the beginning of this. Secondly, I did attend many years ago, but I guess somebody at the county dropped the ball. It was a thing called Plan Princeton. It was a community thing because they were planning to rezone the Princeton Harbor area. And at that time, the overwhelming sentiment of all the co-siders that attended the meeting, not the developers that wanted to build fancy stuff, like some of the images that you showed in Santa Barbara and places, or Santa Cruz. The overwhelming sentiment was to keep the harbor funky and as it is, and not turn it into a mini Monterey or a fisherman's wharf a la San Francisco. So my other question then is, what's the purpose of all these upgrades? Are they just for the tenants in the retail building, or do you have some, deep pockets that are chomping at the bit to upgrade the harbor so they can have fancier restaurants and, attract more tourists, and not just the fishermen and the working people that live on the coast that like to go down there for a cup of chowder? Do you have a plan about that, or what the purpose of this whole thing is?
I can speak to that real quickly as well.
Sure.
The concerns that you're bringing up are precisely why we're having this public meeting, because the board, five elected commissioners that ultimately make decisions are very, very interested in what the community actually wants. So
Okay.
an option, of course, would just simply be to leave the same square footage and basically the same design even of the current retail space, but we have to eventually do significant remodeling, in order to just keep up with the the building's
Deterioration.
deterioration.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand.
Yeah.
My house went to pot after I moved here in '88 because this ocean water does get to everything.
Yeah. So there's some people, there are some people that have been expressing a desire. That's why we've got so many options to actually have a I don't want to say nicer, but a less
funky.
funky place, and have it potentially closer to the water. I think that is kind of what some of the discussion has prompted the board to have Goring Straja come on board to investigate the alternatives.
Maybe
So you
differently
mentioned
funky.
But there's some, yeah, I mean, I would like to keep it more authentic and not mini Monterey or anything. But on the other hand, I also wondered if those are the existing tenants that are expressing those desires, or some outside, fancy restaurateur that would like to have a upgraded spot to put a new location in, because I don't want to see the tenants being disrupted during the construction or remodel process, depending on what you vote on. But if they're the ones that are in favor of all this, I'm for them, because they've been there a long time. Catch Joanne, Princeton Seafood Company. I'd like to see the fish market stay. I mean, I only live I'm in Seal Cove, so I'm about a quarter mile or a mile, something like that, from the harbor. And
Yeah, the
I'd like to-
concerns of the current tenants are very much our concerns as well, the district concerns as well. They're long-term tenants that we value greatly and the community loves. And part of Goring Straja's task was to of course engage with them, and they've already done that to some extent, but we'll be continuing that. The discussion with the tenants played a role in what we're talking about tonight.
So you did say one person or some entity had expressed having a fancier place for a restaurant, I believe you said. So was that one of the existing tenants?
Jim, maybe you can speak to exactly what the existing tenants said.
Obviously the existing tenants would like
as far as my discussion, just briefly, with regard to, that was commissioners that I was hearing
I see. Okay.
talking about the desire to have something a little bit more upscale right on the water.
Right.
And I don't know where where their ideas came from, quite possibly from other of their constituents.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know either. So I guess my concern is that, I hear you moving around earth and moving parking lots and grading and all that besides all the construction. I would like to see it kept kind of funky and authentic, but, so the building's not falling apart, but I think it's an attraction to people to come to a place that's more authentic and not just all fancy for tourists, like a Pier 39 versus the official Fisherman's Wharf further down. We're talking San Francisco, but I do want it to be sustainable. So the less building and construction and earth moving and all of that you have to do, that would be my vote. The other thing is, I don't know what your timeline is for when this would be completed, but in 2035, they're going to stop selling gas vehicle cars, and maybe you got to plan for more EV charging stations, and that's going to up your cost too. But that's a small matter to plan. I just, as it is now, it looks like we're sort of heading into a little bit of a depression with things. They're laying off people in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, and maybe we won't get the big tourist flood that you guys might be expecting that will help pay for this. So that's why I was asking about the dollars. And I don't want to take up too much more time because I do want to look over all the plans, but my preference is still to keep it kind of simple and and authentic looking, even if you have to, you know, upgrade it a little. But some of those photos you were showing looked pretty darn fancy to me, and I'm not really in favor of turning it into that. And the only other thing I was thinking while I heard you talking, but while I was driving, is that you know, if there's some people like you know, the people that sell fishing tackle and sweatshirts and stuff, maybe they could be in a separate type of a retail building if you want to have restaurants down closer to the water. But I don't know if you're planning to separate it like that. And the very last thing is, we do on the coast, especially the mid coast, not Half Moon Bay, need some meeting space. So if you were to build an area that, you know, would have a room that could be rented out or have public meetings there, and not like in the third floor of a building up at in San El Granada, where it gets pretty crowded and stuff. It would be nice if you had a bigger area that could be either rented out to the public for meeting spaces or public event, even private events. But I don't know if you're planning for that. So I'll look at the plans when I get home. Okay, thank you for taking so much time answering my questions.
Thank you.
Sure.
Looking for, there we go. Oops. Dan?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, and I don't know if I'm taking these in any kind of fair order. Mohit might want to do this so I don't mess up, but anyway, yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
that's in a fair order. I'm keeping an eye.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Go ahead, Dan.
So I can go ahead. I can go ahead. Okay, so I just I got feedback from other community members that I posted a couple chat. There was a question early on of the whether the chat was working. I made the first chat. Later on at 6:34 p.m. I made the second chat, the same comment, but I'm hearing from community members that they're not able to read that. So this whole technical problem on the comment section, yeah, it makes this meeting less transparent. You know, I was raised near the ocean. Most of my life lived close to the ocean. I love the ocean. I love to be able to see the ocean. You know, I get, you know, some of these suggestions, recommendations here, or options. You know, I get the idea of having a building close up to the waterfront, you know, and having an ideal situation. If you were to sit down at a table and look out a window and have the upfront, you know, front row seating of the best possible view of the harbor. But here's the deal, you know, you know, especially with the second floor, you're blocking, you know, the views from the majority. By moving it close to the water and or a second floor, you're blocking view. You will be blocking views from the majority of the people that will be looking out, whether it's from just driving down Highway 1, just walking on Capistrano Road, or etc. You know, you're making it ideal for that person sitting on the table, but you're really hurting everything else. You know, I'm very much in favor of looking closely at seeing what you know, reasonable you know, fixing of the existing building, whatever problems there are there now, you know, just whatever it takes to just, you know, take the existing building and fix it up and make it function well. I have been living down here on the coast side, 6-minute walk away from from the harbor. And, you know, the whole time, I remember just moving down here, you know, went down to catch Joanne's. And, you know, I remember I just have, you know, a lot of memories being in Catch Joanne. You know, it's a unique situation where they have a bar on half side and a restaurant on the other half. I just had, you know, so many great memories, and that is such of a unique location, which is extremely rare in the whole region of the Bay Area. And I know a lot of people come just to get that experience, and they love it the way it is. So I would really like to see the Catch Joanne and Harbor Bar remain the same. You know, I'm not unopen to if there was some, you know, and the new ice cream bar next door is very nice. It's just very nice. You know, I grew up in San Francisco, and a lot of it is feeling like you're walking down, whether it's Snowy Valley or one of the unique, you know, neighborhoods. And you know, you're walking in and you're off the street and you're just coming into a really unique and inviting, you know, very just a very you know, nice place that you want to, you know, you just want to come back to. I go there at least twice a week. Let's see what else I have. You know, I think that as far as ocean views being lost, yeah, I used to have an ocean view from my front window in my house. It's gone. I used to be able to see the ocean, you know, more and more, just driving down the highway. A lot of it's gone. And I'll tell you, it's upsetting to me. I really think that to be able to see the ocean, see the water is extremely important, not just to me, but to all the people that come down here. And it's part of the experience. So I'm very much against any second story concepts. You know, I'll quickly say that you know, I want to retire here, and I'm concerned about property taxes going up. I know that you know, part of my property taxes are funding the Harbor District, and so I want to see that the Harbor District is using the best use of my tax dollars. And another issue, concern that I have is lighting. Currently within the harbor, I know it's off topic of this project, but whatever happens to this project, lighting is very important to have. I'm an international dark sky member. I'm sorry, International Dark Sky Association member. And on behalf of, you know, the International Dark Sky Association, you know, basically calling for, you know, minimum light use and the lowest color of light possible. And if the light's not needed, turn them off. I wanted to have the option to show you a picture of the stars, you know, outside in front of my house that I can see. And this is very important for me to be able to see the dark sky. And there's a lot of, I've had conversations with, you know, staff at the harbor about some of the existing problems, but I'm not going to get too much into there, but I want to make sure that any planning forward respects the International Dark Sky Association's recommendations. So, you know, I'll just I'll close with I understand you know, in the past, back in 2012, there was a proposal, and it was claimed that, oh, the Harbor has to, you know, we have to move on and we have to expand and make more retail space. I was at that meeting in 2012, and it was pretty much shot down by the community. An idea, I'll just throw out an idea to possibly add a little bit of if the Harbor District, if the powers that be decide that this is important to add a couple of, you know, an extension of retail spaces. If you go down to Pescadero, there's an area where they have a lot of essentially just kind of low roof sheds, and there's a little retail opportunity, whether it's sweatshirts, etc., but it's very low impact. And so I would want to encourage the planners to sometime go down to Pescadero and get a feel for that, and or the Harbor District, whatever, the commissioners, get a feel for that. And
You mean
but
like
essentially
in the town? When you go inland from Highway 1 into Pescadero town proper?
Yeah, go into, there's the one main road,
Yeah.
Duarte's is there, and then just a
Duarte's,
little
yeah.
further, right in between. It's a very short road. You take a walk on that road, and you're going to walk into some areas where they have some just a row of sheds, smartly spaced apart, so that they can roll out a whether it's a it's just very nice. They do it very nice. They planned it very well. Hang out some shirts or some items, whatever, for sale. So I think that would be a very extremely low impact option to expand any retail opportunities. Like in closing, again, my love for the ocean view. I know I'm not the only one. Everybody loves to be able to see the ocean. So I'm strongly against any second story option, which would increase the blockage of views from various points. And I'll stop there. Thank you for listening to my views.
Thanks for your input. I would just add one piece of information. We originally came up with the second story view for the existing building site, and it seemed to make a lot of sense. And it's a lot less critical for other building sites. So we're happy for the input. Mohit, do you want me to? There you go. Hey. Or do I have to click on Sabrina?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay.
If someone else wants to go first, since I've already spoken, I'm fine with waiting.
Mohit, were you keeping track of
Yes, since Captain Smitty and Sabrina had a chance, Catherine's letter, we can
Okay,
let
thank you. Thank you.
Mike's yours, Catherine.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I agree with Dan on the dark nights, the importance of keeping the lighting at a reasonable level during the dark evening and dark hours, and yet still maintaining safety. I have a couple questions and comments. One that I made on the chat, which other people didn't see, was that most of the time, sun is not an important issue here. Most of the people who come here in the summer are coming to escape the heat. They're happy to get into the fog. And the people who live here, we choose to live in the fog. So I don't think that doesn't deter people from coming over here. The fog is often an attraction, and you'll see the beach is jammed. I agree with Dan on the importance of the surrounding site, and I didn't see any planning on this taking into account the entire site and the attractiveness of the site to the drive-by tourist. I think that's, if you're going to be inviting people, you don't want this, you do want this to be inviting from the main roads of transit, and you have both of those on the map. So I think that's an important part. I would like to know how this meshes with the strategic plan. I see a lot of money being spent here, and for disclosure, I have been recently elected to the Harbor District Board, but I have not been sworn in, I have not been seated, and I am speaking as an individual. I think parking is an important point, and we need to have a low maintenance, as Sid said, Carlisle, we need something that can withstand the elements. The elements here are particularly harsh. There are 2 seawalls here because boats got blown out of the water. And airplanes have been blown off the airport. So the weather really is a critical concern, and maintenance should be a major concern. The other thing that Sid mentioned is a space, and I think it would be in addition to what we've got going, and it may even need to be a separate building, is a space that can be used as a community kind of center option. Because the entire county is the Harbor District community, not just the locals. So we need to be taking a very broad vision here. It should be available for quinceañera parties or graduations or weddings or whatever. But the other thing that we need desperately here, and it would bring people to the site, and I can see that we can probably get it done, is working with NOAA and Coastal Conservancy and others to get an ocean and marine information and bio center. It might be able to be the same as the community center if it were designed right. It can then be used to add income, and income, if it's a community center, they can work with the local restaurants for catering, and there's many advantages to bringing large groups of people here for many of the restaurants. So that said, I look forward to talking to you in the future after I'm seated. And the other is, has anyone done a survey of what people come here for? Do we have really an information survey taken over a couple months out of the year, maybe starting in January? Why are you here? Are you just here for fishing? I haven't seen that many people fishing here. There are more people fishing off of the pier in Pacifica than there are here. Maybe we need to consider a fishing pier. I don't know. A lot of people fish off the breakwater, but that's not fishing off the pier here with the fishing boats and everything. So lots to consider. I think this is a good start, and I appreciate bringing the community in, and I hope we can find ways to bring in a broader community so we can get from the whole county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sabrina, you can talk.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to hit on a bunch of topics. Can we go back to the slide that shows the buildings with the various jurisdictional areas? Because that's more clear to me.
If I can find it.
There we go. Thank you very much. Okay, so a couple of things. Where to start? I'm just gonna kind of go on a random list here. Number one, funding. It's a problem. There needs to be a source of revenue for all of this. Right now, the tenants are not paying market rate rent. If we continue to have the same tenants, apparently they can't afford market rate rent. Then it's the public continuing to subsidize a brand new facility, and that is not acceptable. So this is a very challenging situation. There's going to need to be a plan to phase in market rate rents and what to do about the existing tenants that are extremely subsidized and paying below market rate rent. I'm not suggesting that we oust the tenants, but on the other hand, we can't build new facilities and subsidize the rents. There's got to be market rate rent. So we need a very clearly written plan for how exactly that's going to be addressed. And if that isn't going to be addressed, then we should not be talking about this project at all. So people like Catherine Slater Carter, who just spoke, need to get on that and figure out where the money's coming from, because it is not okay that we taxpayers who own homes, whose property tax is being used to subsidize below market rate rent, continue to do that for a brand new facility. I am not on board with that. So something's got to be figured out as to what to do about that. Also, the locations that have been indicated this evening are all way too close or within the sea level rise inundation zone. And they're also mainly within the Coastal Commission jurisdiction. Not that that's going to prohibit a project from necessarily happening, nor would, the blue zone, which is the county zone, which is essentially just a delayed process because you can still appeal to the Coastal Commission, even if the permit process originally goes through the county. So either way, likely somebody's going to have an issue with this project. So why on earth is there not an alternative included in this presentation that shows the project being located further away from the sea level rise inundation zone? The science is in, and it's only getting worse. It's not going to get better. So as sea level rise continues to, the expectations continue to increase, you should be planning for that, and you should be planning to move this building back away from the inundation zone, not towards the inundation zone. That is reverse logic. It makes no sense at all, and it's a waste of taxpayer funds. So please stop doing that. Move it back, not towards the ocean. Okay. So then next we've got, why hasn't the upper parking lot been included? And I think I just hit on that. And I think you guys need to come up with an alternative. Already, that's really close to the water. So please come up with an alternative for the upper parking lot, because I think you're going to have a problem with all of the locations that are included in what we've been shown this evening. With regards to the questionnaire, there's a problem with the questionnaire. It doesn't make sense, and I'd be happy to chat with you guys about that offline. There needs to be a probably minor tweak to the questionnaire so that the public can fill it out and understand what you're asking for, because I looked at it and it didn't make any sense to me. With regard to the coastal trail, some of the locations that you have included in this map are blocking coastal trail access. Do you think the Coastal Commission's going to go ahead with that? Definitely not. So you're going to have to plan for a location for the coastal trail with whatever you do. Now, you probably are aware of that, but we didn't hear anything about that tonight. And the coastal trail is the most important thing we have going on the coast side, and it provides the largest coastal access on the coast side, and it's the Coastal Commission's responsibility to make sure that they are maintaining coastal access on the coastal trail for Californians. So let's take that seriously. With regards to a community center, I agree. We need one, and the Harbor District needs to provide it. So figure out what that's going to be, where that's going to go, because that's really what we ought to be doing if we're building anything, is putting in a community center. It needs to be nice so that there could be workshops there. There could be public agency events and meetings, and there are opportunities for the public to use the space at a reasonable rate to have events such as indicated, family events, so on and so forth. So I agree that we definitely need a community center, and it needs to be at this location. I agree with the comments on the dark sky, so I'm on board with that. I do think that we need to think about building height. I think you should think in terms of flat roof, like mid-century modern, that kind of thing. But I also encourage you to think outside the box. We didn't see anything tonight other than the floating idea, which that was interesting. What about doing modular buildings, partly using like, could be food trucks, just doing something completely different than what we've seen. How about we just do a really rough sort of warehouse structure with roll-up garage doors that are glass so that you could have a business with a roll-up door, sort of Princeton style, you know, and then you can have people dining outdoors or coming inside, you know, that sort of thing. I'd like to see something a little bit more creative than what we've seen so far. You know, this is kind of standard stuff here, and we're an area that's in an unincorporated part of the county. We have Princeton right next door. We have extreme sea level rise concerns, and we have storm concerns, all kinds of things, tsunami. So why not keep everything movable and mobile so that it can be moved around? There's no reason to build like fixed buildings. So those are my thoughts for consideration. And I just want to reiterate that everything that might happen with this project can eventually be appealed to the Coastal Commission. So it's really important that you come up with a plan that everybody supports. Otherwise, it could be a really long haul. And you need to figure out where the funding is going to come from. And the board needs to act responsibly, which they haven't done so far. They need to be able to tell the public where they're going to get the money and how it's going to be paid for, and ensure everybody that the rate for rent is going to be market rate, and that they have a plan for phasing everyone into market rate rent. All of that needs to be transparent so that we understand that it's not just going to be a big taxpayer subsidy. We're not interested in having any sort of like retail stores that are part of a chain. We don't want that here. No one's going to support it. So if you think that you're going to turn this into some kind of like retail marketplace with some chain retail stores, I didn't hear that tonight, but if that were to come up as a way to sort of figure out the financial side of it, no one's interested in having that here. There isn't enough business for it. Number one, you know, we can't even, like, Harbor Village is a complete failure, as everybody knows. So just look at that as an example of what doesn't work. And no chain retail anything. It's got to be all individual businesses owned by families and that sort of thing. That's the only thing that's going to fly in the unincorporated area. So those are my suggestions. Thank you.
Well, I have a question for you, Sabrina. When you mentioned in conjunction with the sort of roll-up garage style development, Princeton style, and I'm afraid right now the only thing that comes to mind is the Princeton development immediately above the hill, which I know you're not referring to. Are there specific buildings you could refer us to? Because I would love to take a look.
Well, there's the coffee place, which is just in a like basically like a container. It's like 2 containers. There's a bunch of container buildings over there. And then there's the distillery that is essentially like container buildings with a patio area for people to sit outside around like a outdoor fire, you know, gas fire or whatever, and sip artisan cocktails and have some, you know, snacks before dinner or whatever. I mean, you need not go far to find that in Princeton. It's right there. So check it out.
Okay. There we go. You are live, Captain Smith.
Okay, thank you. One thing I wanted to address is with the head wall, is that I would like you to explore that to be a 2-story operation, and include the harbor master's office into that and incorporate that into the structure. And you can move the harbor masters upstairs to give that ground floor the retail space needed. And if you did a second story, again, you'd have the harbor masters up there. You could also then put an open space up there for your meetings or further retail space. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thanks everybody for your time. I'm trying to see if Sabrina's still here, if you can email your comment on the questionnaire. If it's something we can address quickly, we can probably do that very soon. Teresa sort of put that together very efficiently. So, well, thanks everybody for your input. We look forward to some more of this and see if we can, by the way, since we do have a few minutes, I'm just going to take a little bit of a risk here and go back to this thing.
Sorry to interrupt, Jim. We have a hand raised.
Okay.
Whenever you want to call upon.
Oh, that's Dan. There you go. Whoops, Steve. Sorry. I think did I just mute you? I hope not. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, okay, great. So yeah, thank you. In response to I think it was Sabrina's comments as far as the existing restaurants, the existing tenants being subsidized. I'm not sure the whole extent of that, but I do go there regularly, and you know, it's a wonderful when I'm talking about Catch Joanne, the whole strip there. You know, they recently, it wasn't that long ago that they extended the sidewalk, and then they opened up all the tables outside, which is very nice. You know, it's just really nice. A lot of sunshine. You know, the umbrellas help in the wind, or if it's too bright. But you know, there's an existing some kind of a surcharge to the bill. I'm happy to pay the bill. I think that the rates of the plates, you know, the food options are you know, reasonable. Happy to you know, help the economy, help the local economy, and you know, tip well. The staff is great. The staff at Catch Joanne, I cannot say enough. They're just doing it. Functions, the whole restaurant functions so well. Never experienced any kind of a you know, any unpleasant situation. Everybody in the restaurant is happy. They enjoy being. But there, you know, there is a surcharge. I'm not sure what that is. If that's helping from the if that goes to the county or whatever. If it's a COVID thing, but not a big deal. I just wanted to say that however it's operated now, you know, I'm happy. You know, I'm happy with it. I do think that the bigger picture would be if there was an extreme project in the future here to redo things. But of course, that's going to add. Somebody's got to pay for that, and this is the reason why I'm expressing, you know, so urging so strongly to you know, to keep it simple, fix what's needed. Please do not no second stories anywhere, because you're just going to block more of the views for the majority. You know, people walking around in the area, that don't block of the views for everybody in the whole area. Even the parking lot, if people look down at a parking lot where you got to park anyway, but you get out of your car and you're standing around, hey, I'm here. You look around, oh, it's beautiful. Well, there's a reason it's beautiful, because you can see you can, it's an open field. So my again, I'll urge, a very low key fix to this situation. My suggestion is keep it in the same location, and whatever repairs are needed, go ahead. Want to make a little fancy option to the roof, line, as long as it's not raised. Put a little dormers or whatever the architects thinks, and everybody else, the community thinks that could be an improvement. Sure, go ahead, look at that. But yeah, I think that overall, if we can move forward with the lowest cost, but at the same time functioning, and respecting the ocean views for the majority. Really, it's the majority. People who live across the highway, people just passing through, and keep things simple. That's my comment. Thank you very much for my allowing for my comment.
Thanks,
All right.
Dan. And I'm going to try and take one last privilege, since I have a mic, is we're desperately trying to narrow these down. And I guess I'd like, hands, or if we can turn all the mics on for a second. But as we've had this discussion, a couple of things seem to have made themselves a little clearer. One is putting the facility in the water doesn't seem to be a great thing to think about. And the other, though there were a few comments of it, I did have a chat with the guy who's running the stand-up paddle boards, and I realized this is not a hardened location right now, and hardening it would probably meet with pitchforks and torches. I think that the highest up the hill we're likely to get and still be someplace that feels like you're on the coast area is this area. It's above the inundation zone, so we wouldn't have to regrade. And then at least from some things I've heard, everyone seems to be interested in looking at the existing building. This site presents a lot of interesting opportunities, and I don't know about this. So I've bared my kind of summary of what I've heard and how my thoughts have been developed. If there's any last comments, I'd be glad to hear them. Otherwise, we thank you for your input and your patience. This has been a long evening on a Thursday, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. I just wanted to make one other quick comment, and that is, since there is no budget for this yet, I guess I'm thinking a low profile building, so repair and upgrade maybe a little bit the existing building. And also it's been my opinion that a lot of publicly elected people like to spend other people's money. And you can look at any city council or any board, and they're always thinking of ways to spend taxpayers' money. But I'm from New England, and the way we used to think of things is use it up, wear it out, make do without. I don't want the harbor to do without, but I think if they can figure out a way to upgrade the existing building and not spend a ton of money, taxpayer money, or push take out some kind of crazy bond that's going to go 40 years. I hate that. That's what the school district does. And they always come back for more money later. So I'm just being fiscally sustainable and responsible, as well as trying to not tear down a building if you can fix it. So that's just my thought. I will look at the presentation when I get off my mobile phone and can see it larger on my screen. But also, one other thing that I thought of that Dan brought up about having like a little retail space for less expensive operators. There used to be a guy at the harbor think his name was Lucky, and he made carvings out of driftwood. And I mean, he had little fish and all kinds of things you could buy. And that's kind of like a handmade product, but it's definitely not something he could rent a storefront for. And if you had something like that, I know at the harbor, down in the industrial harbor area, they have on Harvard Avenue, they have a market. I think it's once a month for artisans and stuff, and different people show their wares at different times. So if you can incorporate some little area like that for local people who can't afford the big rent, that would be nice, like they do in Pescadero, or like they just set up tents at the Harvard Avenue Market. Anyway, that's all. I'm just gonna thank you for letting me talk twice, and I'm hanging in there to go look at the presentation better than the teeny weeny thing on my screen on the cell phone. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more minutes before we come into a community abuse time.
Yeah, hi, this is Sabrina. So I don't think you guys should lead people towards a conclusion. So that would be one suggestion. And secondly, as I previously stated earlier, there was discussion prior to this meeting about a location option up in the parking lot area that could still be low and also include a parking garage, because the main problem at Pillar Point Harbor is that there is not enough parking. And to exclude that from the options is not acceptable. So that option needs to be put in place. And I believe that the Coastal Commission will likely, the staff will likely require you to put in such an option. So why waste time? Why not just go ahead and put that in for the public to consider it? It's
what advantages to that do you see, Sabrina? I'm curious how that's more advantageous than the uphill option we already have.
You don't have an uphill option.
The site option number 2 is above the inundation zone there.
That's not uphill. That's not what I would describe as uphill. That's like a couple of feet above the current location. It's essentially, it's right on the edge of the inundation zone. And so that's not planning ahead. You need to do better. You need to plan ahead, because we know that that's a moving target. And by the time this whole thing probably gets reviewed, that target will have moved. So go ahead and come up with another option that's more reasonably out of that zone. We have considerations such as tsunami inundation in addition to sea level rise. And as we know, tsunamis have hit Pillar Point Harbor more than once. We have the photos. We know what the inundation looked like. We know what the damage looked like because the photos still exist. So tsunami is a big concern, and it's important that the district act responsibly and come up with an option. Look, no option here is going to be very far away from the ocean or very high above the zone that it needs to be above. But given what you've got to work with, why on earth wouldn't you come up with the option that gives you the highest elevation and also build in additional parking? Because we should not be trying to maintain existing parking. We need to be adding to the existing parking, not taking away and not maintaining. We need to add parking, and that needs to be a very top of list priority for any projects that happen at Pillar Point Harbor. If you're not adding parking, then your project doesn't need to happen, in my mind. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. We have a huge parking problem. People are parking.
Well, you might have a public transit problem.
That's irrelevant. That's not related to what we're talking about right here, right? We can't control that because we're not having a meeting with Caltrans tonight, are we? Are you Caltrans? Are you Samtrans? No. So what we're dealing with is what we're dealing with. We have a highway which has 2 lanes. There is only one way in and out. Okay, it's on Highway 1. And we have a very real concern about tsunami inundation and emergency evacuation access. So you guys are going to need to take that seriously. It's going to come up. So I'm just telling you, like, why would you give us all these options all cloistered around basically hugging the water's edge as close as you can pretty much get. I mean, it doesn't make sense. At least make the effort to try to put one up a little bit higher. I think that would be in your best interest. So I'm going, I don't have to be here tonight. I can bring this up later once this, goes to like a higher level of discussion. But I'm doing this because I'm trying to be helpful. So I'm suggesting that you come up with an option that's more reasonable and higher above the inundation zone and the sea level rise zone. So if you could consider that. And then I'm also suggesting that you come up with an option for temporary structures or portable structures. And I think the Coastal Commission would likely look at that more favorably if you wanted to put those temporary structures that could be moved a little bit closer to the water. So maybe you do a combination of both, but you're going to need to get a lot more creative than what's happening here. We also have a problem with access in and out of the harbor. So whatever's done needs to incorporate in the plan for transit. We have trucks that need to get in and out to offload fish onto, and that has not been discussed at all. So there needs to be a plan for EV charging, for solar. There needs to be a plan for what to do about, the needs for electric on the pier. There needs to be a plan for access of semi trucks to the pier. There needs to be a safety plan for how the trucks are going to get around this building, how the parking is going to be configured. In fact, you know what? I think I'm going to quote Sid Young. I remember at a Board of Supervisors meeting, probably about 15, 16 years ago, she was very clear with the Board of Supervisors on some such project that they were Frankensteining the thing together. And that's what we have here. This is a Frankensteining of an idea that the board had that has not been incorporated into a master plan, that has not been incorporated into a transit plan, that has not been incorporated into a parking plan, and has not addressed the needs of the commercial and recreational boating and fishing communities. So all of that needs to be done. It needs to be comprehensive. I agree there should be a survey. This is a Frankensteining of some boards, wet dream or whatever, sorry. And, it's just not well thought out. So please do better. And if all you've been asked to do is this, it's going to be a problem. So you can just tell the board that this is unacceptable. Thank you.
A little bit lost here.
Okay, this is Dan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so you asked for, I think, just a quick summary of the circled options that are, you kind of crossed out some, and I think that's what you asked a few minutes ago. So, a side option at Rocky Beach. My comment quick is that the Harbor District just spent a hell of a lot of money redoing the restrooms in this area. So this option would take out those restrooms. I think those restrooms are very, very important. So I that's my comment for that one. The site option uphill. I think that will, because currently the existing building does block some water views, but you can see over the roof a little bit. This uphill option, I think there's no way around, unless you have a super low roof. I don't think there's no way around with that adding to ocean view blockage. So that's my comment there. Yeah, I've already said that I'm in favor of doing what it takes to fix the existing building and keep the existing Catch Joanne intact, because it's a jewel for the whole region. There's not a lot of places as unique as that. And then you during the conversation you put a little quick box up in the I think it's parking lot C. I don't want to say yes or no on that option yet. Certainly anything up there would have to be low roof. Might be a option As Sabrina said, parking is a very big issue. Anything there would take away from parking. But if there was some way to mitigate and make some other parking, I know it's very difficult to make any further parking, but I don't know. I'm just going to say quickly that that area, maybe the first row of parking could be a potential for a pescadero shed type of a retail where people could walk through in an open area. Certainly no real building, but a series of sheds with some kind of retail space. I'm not going to say yes or no, but I would be open to conversations. Of course, if I'm outvoted from the community on that idea, I would certainly yield. But that's or another option that's not circled, but everywhere you look, parking, taking away parking, it's a problem. So I'll stop there. And thank you very much. I do appreciate. I want to say to the whole staff and everybody running this meeting, I really do appreciate that you've allowed people to really express their ideas and give them time. Nobody was cut off. I really appreciate that. The only other thing was the chat seems to be not working well. Some people can't read certain comments, but I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for everything. And yeah.
Thank you. John, did you want to conclude with anything?
Yeah, I would just like to thank everybody. All of the input that we gathered tonight is very beneficial to us, and it may very well be, we do, have to keep in mind that our decision makers, our 5 members of our Harbor Commission, are all elected officials. So they all work for you. And we all are aware that the most interested group of people, and I would venture to guess that 98% of the people that are attending the meeting now are local to this immediate community. So your concerns are very important and very influential to our elected officials that, of course, pay attention to their constituencies. So all that said, this has been very informative to us, and the Goring Straja team are going to take this information and go back to the drawing board. I think we've got a lot of very, very good information, a lot of really good ideas that, starting off, I think that any architectural firm does, kind of go to a place of let's look for examples, and maybe those examples that that you come up with of successful properties elsewhere aren't what fits here. And ultimately, if what the community wants is for us to be able to work through the challenges of totally renovating while trying to stay open as much as possible the current building, and maybe not even going with the second floor, it might very well be the direction that we go. So all your information, all of your input is very valuable, and we'll be putting something more together to eventually bring back to the board and the public. So again, thank you all very much, and Goring Straja team, thank you for hosting the meeting tonight. And I think this was very successful. I am able to see all of the comments, so I think that we were able to grasp all the comments. And Theresa has put the survey, and she can tweak it a little bit. She's given her email, and if not, you can go to the smharbor.com, our website, and email me if you did not get Theresa's email to ask her about questions with regard to ideas that you have to better the survey. So we're going to continue working together as a community and hopefully come up with a way to improve the site that everybody's happy with, or at least the vast majority of people. And like Dan said, those that maybe we end up not doing exactly what they'd want, you kind of get something that you're okay with, that you can understand that the majority of the community was okay with. And as was brought up before, obviously nothing's going to get done without cooperation and the proper permitting. And we all know that that if we don't have a strong community support, permitting doesn't happen. So we're all going to work together and try to come up with and work through maybe several more of these sessions. We'll have to see how it goes. So thank you all again for attending tonight, and I look forward to kind of what Growing Straja comes up with after tonight and our next meetings.
Thanks for your patience. I'm glad we had a 2-hour meeting, and it was good to let everybody talk.
Yeah.
Good night, all.
Good night. Thank you.